Do, do, do. And here we go. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the May 3rd regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. The consent agenda, I'm looking for somebody to move and second A through C. Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. We have two delegations this afternoon. Firstly, we want to welcome our auditors from KPMG. And if they're in the waiting room, we can let them out. I think we lost our auditors. Just joined?
Hello, it's Lenora from KPMG.
Hi, Lenora.
Hi.
We can't see you. There we go. Thank you. It's nice to see you again. Please go forward.
Okay, so this portion of the agenda is to discuss the financial statements for the City of Parksville for the December 2021 fiscal year. We have met as a committee to review in detail the findings of our audit, the areas of focus, and address any questions that may arise as a result of our work. The auditor's report, as presented, is a clean and unqualified audit opinion. So it indicates that the financial statements present fairly in accordance with the public sector accounting standards, which are the rules that the city needs to follow in presenting its financial reports. Overall, we don't have any concerns in regards to the accuracy of the financial statements based on the financial audit procedures performed. It was a very clean audit process, and we did receive the full support of management in executing our procedures. In terms of a couple highlights of the financial statements themselves, I just thought I'd touch on a few of the numbers within the financial statements. The financial assets of the city were 63.7 million at the end of 2020, and that represents an increase of about 12 million from the previous year. That was primarily a result of the surplus for the year, which was split and invested between held in the bank cash and investments. In terms of financial liabilities, those are the obligations of the city as at the end of the year. Those were 26 million and had increased from 23 million on a year-over-year basis. There was a few offsetting impacts here. Generally, there was a decrease in liabilities with the ERWS project coming to a close. The holdbacks at the end of 2019 were paid out. And offsetting that, there is some additional deposits and development cost charges that were collected in 2020, overall resulting in a net increase in that caption. Non-financial assets are mostly the capital assets of the city, and those were 196 million on a year-over-year basis. There were additions of 2.5 million, mostly related to roads and infrastructure projects around Forsyth. And there was amortization of 5 million, and that included an additional 1 million of amortization with ERWS coming live in the year. The accumulated surplus of the city represents the total surpluses since incorporation, and that was 233 million at the end of the year. Most of those surpluses have already been spent and invested into capital. So 190 million is already invested into capital assets. There's 15 million of restricted reserves at the end of the year, and those are reserves that are required by legislation or monies that are required to be set aside for certain purposes. And there's 27 million of unrestricted surplus. That represents funds that can be spent on operations or as the city chooses. That does represent a very healthy financial position. It's approximately one year of total expenses. So it does provide a lot of room for contingency as well as investment into projects, future projects and operations. In terms of the statement of operations or the revenues and expenses for the year, overall, there was a $6 million surplus for the year. And that represents a slight decrease year over year. But much of the surplus from 2019 represented some non-cash items. So these would be developer cost charges that were recognized or contributions of capital assets from a couple of the development projects that occurred last year. Those are primarily around Arbutus Church and Temple Street. So total revenues year on year were 31 million. That represents a decrease from previous year's 34 million. As mentioned, there were a few reasons for the decrease: fewer capital projects during the year, which resulted in less development cost charges being recognized, with ERWS winding up in 2019 in terms of the capital costs. There was fewer development cost charges recognized. And with COVID-19, there were fewer events, so you'll see that the water and sewer user fees did decrease year over year. Offsetting some of those reductions in revenue was the receipt of the Safe Restart grant, and that was 2.9 million for the year. In terms of expenses, the total expenses for the city were 25 million in 2020. An increase from 24.1 million in 2019. And the most significant portion of that did relate to additional amortization expense on ERWS, as well as new operating costs that became effective in 2020. And then there were regularly scheduled increases to salaries and wages as a result of the collective agreement. So as mentioned, the overall surplus for the year was 6.2 million. And much of that has been invested into capital projects already. So 2.2 million of the surplus was spent on capital projects, and the rest of it has been placed into reserve. Much of that is the COVID-19 grant, the just under 3 million that was received this year, which is earmarked for future expenses and contingency. And that results in an accumulated surplus, once again, of 233 million, of which 190 million has already been invested in capital, 15 million is in restricted reserve, and 27 million in unrestricted. Those were the highlights of the financial statements that I wanted to touch on. Our thanks to management and the finance team for their assistance with the audit. As mentioned, a very clean audit process, despite the logistics around COVID-19 and a very busy year. Pleased to report that the financial records were certainly in good shape and very easy for us to audit for the year.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for KPMG? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. We have two recommendations on this. I need a mover for the first and the second recommendation. We'll take them both at the same time. Councillor Fraz and second by Councillor Greer. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Now we have a second delegation from the Mid-Vancouver Island Habitat Enhancement Society. Are you there? There we go. You can see you. Thank you. Please go ahead. You have 10 minutes. Go ahead, Barb.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Are we on?
You are. Please go forward.
Okay. All right. Hi. My name is Barb Riordan. I am the president of the Mid-Vancouver Island Habitat Enhancement Society, or MIVES for short. Presenting with me today is Pete Law, who is vice president of MIVES. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today about who we are, the work we've been doing on Shelley Creek for the past 10 years, and what we're planning to do on Shelley Creek this year. We're a charitable society based in Parksville with over 50 members. Mivies is dedicated to the recovery of wild Pacific salmon through the conservation and restoration of their habitat and to connecting people to their landscape through education. Okay, next slide, please. Are we controlled? Okay, good. We began as a society in 1999 as stewards of the Englishman River Recovery Plan and have progressed into stewards of the Englishman River watershed through our Watershed Health and New program. Since 2010, we have focused most of our monitoring efforts on the Shelley Creek watershed, which is a small tributary in the lower Englishman River. Next slide, please.
Okay, this is where I come in. Here we see Shelley Creek watershed outlined in white. The light blue line through the middle is the creek. The creek's headwaters are roadside ditches in Arrington, flowing around Little Mountain under Highway 19 through the Upper Corfield subdivisions, and then through Shelley Farm to meet the river at the Orange Bridge. Next slide. Over the 10 years, we have involved hundreds of local volunteers in projects to assess Shelley Creek's ability to produce fish. Today, I have some good news, some bad news, and some really ugly news about Shelley Creek. The good news is that the creek provides limited but valuable habitat for coho and trout populations. The bad news is the water quality in the fall, specifically its turbidity values, are the highest in Oceanside. The ugly news now is that the stream is suffering from wildly fluctuating annual flows, almost drying up in the winter time. Next slide. Now, through the efforts of our volunteers, our funders, and property owners, we've been successful in completing many projects to restore fish habitat in Shelley Creek. These are two of the larger projects we've done. An example of a small project is riparian planting. Next slide, please. Now, to help us understand the water quality problems the creek experiences, we hired an engineer with 35 years experience in rainwater management to complete this water balance, Shelley Creek water balance and sediment reduction study, completed in 2017. We asked him to answer two questions. What's causing the creek to experience such high flows in winter and low flows in summer? And what can we do to fix the water balance of the creek to restore its ecological health? The reports are on our website. Next slide, please. The report helped us to understand that there is a natural water balance that has been altered by land development in the watershed over the years. The number one recommendation from the report involves all landowners in the watershed. To restore the water balance, we need to implement rainwater targets to restore what's called shallow groundwater, where most creek flows come from during the summer months. Landowners need to slow rainwater down, spread it out, and sink it into the ground. Rain gardens are a great example as pictured here. Next slide, please. To help you understand the concept of slow, spread, and sink rainwater, I think this chart helps. It shows that not all rainfall we see in Parksville is a torrential downpour. 75% of the rainfall events we have here are 30 millimeters or 1 inch or less. It's these small storms we'd like to focus on to restore groundwater in developed parts of the watershed, including the Upper Corfield and Hamilton Road areas. Next slide, please. Now you might ask, is Shelley Creek really worth it? In 2019, we had an economic analysis of the creek's worth as a natural asset. I thought I'd share you a few gee whiz facts. Investment by Mivies and our partners over the last 10 years in monitoring and restoring water quality and fish habitat has been in the neighborhood of $300,000 in investments. The value of properties adjacent to the creek see a bump in property values that translate to the creek having a value of $1,374 per linear meter in 2019 land assessment numbers. The community also, of course, recognizes the importance of the creek's natural amenities, especially after the bridge that was placed in the creek in the park. That was a great project by the city. In conclusion, the creek is a valued natural asset without accounting for its importance in drainage and habitat for fish. Next project, and that's you, Barb.
Next slide, please.
Slide.
So what's in store for 2021? Well, following up on our project last year on the section of Shelley Creek called Martindale Pond, seen in the left-hand photo, we're conducting a similar project on the section of Shelley Creek that runs through Shelley Farm. Each year, thousands of coho, salmon, smolts, and hundreds of trout juveniles use the pond and Shelley Farm as rearing habitat. The project in Martindale Pond involved dredging out tons of sediment and reed canary grass that had filled in habitat and left little room for the fish. This year, we're restoring rearing habitat in Shelley Farm, as you can see in the right-hand photo. We've received a grant from the Pacific Salmon Foundation for $22,200 and will be contracting Parksville Heavy Equipment to conduct the work. Next slide, please.
Okay, in the month of May, MIVIs and a research team at the Vancouver Island University will be mailing a survey to 175 neighbors of the Shelley Creek Park in Upper Courtfield and Butler Road areas, outlined in the light blue lineage here on the map. The survey will ask homeowners about their awareness of the issues facing the creek and how they can help with a focus on water conservation and restoration of summer flows. Next slide. Once COVID clearance is given, MIVI's volunteers will be engaging local Shelley Creek Park area homeowners at pop-up tent sessions to assist homeowners and residents to understand how they might help design and implement rainwater projects on their property. Next slide. Council should be aware that starting this year in the Englishman River, they'll be part of a large East Coast of Vancouver Island tagging study to determine salmon freshwater survival rates. This $1.6 million study is funded by the Pacific Salmon Foundation. Piggybacking on this tagging project, MIVIs will be supporting a Vancouver Island University student to use this technology in a trout migration study in Shelley Creek over the coming year. We will be tracking fish with an antenna. We would like to place it in Shelley Park North. Next slide.
So our Water Balance Community Outreach Project will be actively engaging local residents over the next 12 months to encourage a neighborhood approach to managing rainwater. We would like council to, one, be aware we'll be requesting a park use permit for Shelley Creek Park for the pop-up tent sessions to interact with the neighborhood, and that's planned for late summer, early fall. Two, we'll be requesting a park use permit to undertake the trout tagging study. Three, be aware of the benefits of rain gardens in restoring a more natural water balance in creeks and consider making them an integral part of stormwater management in all development projects. And four, in 2020, the city's engineering department had Northwest Hydraulics conduct a study on the culvert on Shelley Creek at the end of Bloor Road. The study offered 3 options for the treatment of the culvert, which is a barrier to trout passage and has caused erosion. MIVIs was invited to comment on the study. We believe the best option is to just remove the culvert since there's no road crossing at that location and to restore the creek channel. Okay, next slide, please. Well, thanks very much for your attention and we'll take any questions now.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Barb, where is the culvert? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, at the end of Blower Road, yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Anybody else? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you very much for a great presentation. Very informative, and thank you for all the work that you do and being located in the city of Parksville. I really appreciate all of your efforts. You're doing a great job. Just a quick question. Has there been any problem upstream of the Shelley Creek area with septic fields and so forth, fouling the downstream areas of Shelley Creek? To any effect that anyways maybe not enhancing the rearing of the trout, or have the septic fields been affecting Shelley Creek at all?
That's a hard question to answer. Because our sampling that we had done, it's with the regional district of Nanaimo, and we're sampling mostly for turbidity, conductivity, oxygen, and temperature. We had been doing some sampling with for coliforms and other constituents for a year or so earlier, and there were coliforms that were in the water that could be from septic fields, or they could be from the farm. It's hard to say, but this, the upstream part does go through Arrington in that area, and so I think that's a good question to ask. The impact that septic would have on Shelley Creek would not be the bacteria itself. The coliforms don't affect trout or salmon, but what might affect it would be if it's human septic. We often have, what do we pour down our drains? Well, we use toilet bowl cleaners, we use dishwasher soap. When we wash our floors, we dump that into our sinks. So it would be the other chemicals that come with a septic field that could possibly have an impact on the health of the fish. But that hasn't been studied in detail yet, so.
Thank you. And if I have follow-up, Your Worship. Slightly related, has MIVUS done any work on the Craig Creek that goes into Craig Bay recently? Well, fairly recently, I would say within a year or 2 years, there was a new culvert put in down on Northwest Bay Road. At one time, Pacific Shores used to have a enhancement program down there, and they used to work on that area. That's since not happened. Has MIVUS looked at that area? Is that salmon bearing, or does it need any work in restoration, or do you have any position on Craig Creek right at this time?
I can answer that. Craig Creek is actually within the streamkeeper groups on the east coast of Vancouver Island divide themselves up, and there is a streamkeeper group out of Nanoose that actually do a lot of monitoring and restoration work on Craig Creek. So, in answer to your question, it's the Nanoose Bay streamkeepers who monitor most of the activities in Nanoose in Craig Creek, and their monitoring of culvert issues has been at Terrian Road, and of course the big crossing that the city put in a couple of years ago. So yes, there's activity there.
Thank you.
Councillor Fraz?
Thank you, and thanks, Barb and Peter, for your presentation here too. I appreciate it. I think it was very interesting to see the way that you guys were able to assign a value to per meter of the creek. And I agree that the community very much appreciates all the restoration work you've done. It's a beautiful area. One of the questions I have, I just want to make sure I understand clearly what the issue is that you're saying is in the summertime, the rain events that we have, being that the creek is fed from stormwater runoff, that the rain then comes down washes into the creek and then quickly passes the creek without having a chance to recharge the ground. Is that correct?
Yes, Councillor. It's the issue here in Shelley Creek is similar to many East Coast Island small watersheds. Like Shelley Creek is only 5 kilometers long. It doesn't survive on snowmelt the way the Englishman River does. The Shelley Creek, the majority of the rainwater that hits the ground, about 20% evaporates. 60% actually goes into the shallow groundwater, which is a layer of from the soil, from the surface of the soil to the hard clay. If any of you have ever dug into the soil on the east coast of Vancouver Island, you found that you hit clay at some point around a meter down, and it's that portion of the soil that is the sponge, and that water that collects along or in that shallow soil area actually moves slowly across the landscape into local creeks. And that is the portion of the water that we need to try and restore, because every time we dig a ditch or we put impervious surface down, we actually take away the balance, the water that naturally would want to seep down into the soil and move slowly across the landscape to a creek. That's been diverted. It becomes surface water and moves quickly. And so that's what we've actually seen on Shelley Creek, to the extent that it's created quite a volume of water that comes down in November and December, eroding the creek.
If I may follow up there too, you mentioned a solution is or maybe an aid to it is rain gardens. Is it something that there's a critical point if there was a rain garden put in where it would contribute to it, or is it that rain gardens are just needed all throughout? Like, can it be done off just a particular area near the portion down, or how do rain gardens best support the creek?
Rain gardens best support the creek, Councillor, by multiple rain gardens actually providing an opportunity for the sponge to be reconnected to rainwater. It's not a matter of trying to build a community rain garden. It can be built. You just have to, the rain garden would have to be bigger. So for example, if we even considered a large rain garden in the Shelley watershed, if the pipes could be removed from under Hamilton Road and a large rain garden built along the side of the road, that would actually assist in actually putting water back in the ground for the community. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but if all these property owners, for example, along Hamilton Road, built their own small rain garden to take that small rain event and put it back in the ground, we're going to have more water in the creek.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you so much for your presentation. It's been a few years. I knew Faith Smith, and I definitely went out and volunteered with her at times. So it's very fitting that you're here just shortly after World Earth Day, and that. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm assuming that we will, based on your presentation and some of the requests that you've initiated. And that I wanted to ask a little bit about the grant and the work that you're going to be doing with the funds from that grant. You're going to work at doing some pond work as well. Is that correct?
Oh, are you speaking of Shelley Farm, the Pacific Salmon Foundation grant that we received? Yes, yeah. Well, yes, with that, The idea is there's also a lot of invasive species that are clogging that creek. There's been a lot of sediment again that has basically filled and covered habitat there. I don't know if people know that coho salmon actually spawn on the Shelley farm. They actually go up that creek and there's a little bit of gravel left on the farm and they actually spawn. And so you can go up there and see little salmon fry in the summer. But yeah, they're caught in little ponds that dry up in the summer. So that really reduces survival. So we'll be clearing out the sediment and the invasive species like we did with the Martindale pond and putting in little like runs and ponds, like natural stream habitat that fish need. So there would be runs that would have some gravel in it and some fast moving water. And then there would be a pond also that they could seek refuge in from the warm temperatures in the summer. And it would also act a little bit to help with sediment capture to these ponds. So that's the idea with the Shelley farm.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So my question actually follows what Councillor Fraz was talking about. It was about the extent of rain gardens. I actually live at the top of Corfield on Trill, so I'm quite familiar with your work. I walk the trail at least twice a day and it's absolutely stunning. Everybody loves it. The feedback is fabulous. So I have a natural dip in my front yard anyway. So I'm wondering, it basically was to follow up with Councillor Fraz's question about how extensive you would want the rain gardens to be to help with this. So I think you've probably answered that, but if you want to add to it, you can. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor. And yes, we're very interested in talking with you. Small dips in property are going to be really important for the accumulation of some level of shallow groundwater sponge that we can have that we can kind of recreate your area and the area immediately adjacent to the creek. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a lot of loss of cedar. And the reason for that loss is because a lot of the development that has occurred up in your area has disconnected that flow from that shallow groundwater flow that has moved across Corfield and through the creekside strata to a point where we'd like to replace it. Our engineering report that was done in 2016 actually identifies rainwater targets, so we can actually size rain gardens specific to the amount of area you want to put water from your roof, for example. We could size it for the roof.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Very informative. Enjoyed it. And good luck with your future on this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Very good. Director of Finance, Lucky, are you there?
Yeah, just gonna turn on my video here. If I may, Your Worship, yes, this report's about sewer rate charges and the increase in the sewer rates. So the 2021 to 2025 financial plan included sanitary sewer rate increases of 5% for 2021. That increase is partially offset by eliminating the proposed water rate increases. The increase for the minimum sewer charge amounts to $9.76 per year. And despite this increase, the accumulated surplus reserve still falls below the recommended minimum of $1 million in year 5 of the financial plan at this point. hopefully annual surpluses will serve to rectify that as we move forward. And the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Thank you. I need somebody to move and second the recommendations 1, 2, and 3. If we want to do them all together, Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Now, Manager of Information Services. Thank you. If you'd like to talk to us about fiber optic cable vendor selection.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just give you a brief summary of my report and some of the main points. As per Council's approval of the report titled Fiber Optic Services to City Facilities in November, on November 4th, 2020, staff released an RFP this January with the intent of acquiring a qualified vendor services to implement a fiber optic communications network to connect our City Hall to our operations facility, the ERWS facility, and the Spring Reservoir. The proposals have been through an evaluation process, and staff are recommending Above and Beyond Networks as the preferred vendor. Just briefly to give you an involvement as well, as mentioned, the school district is in this project. School District 69 currently utilizes the existing 100 millimeter communications conduits on Craig and Despard Streets with their own fiber optic network. The school district expressed interest in working with the city on this project in order to place newer, higher speed fiber for their communications network. And after the costs came in, there, as per the agenda, and I'll just summarize them briefly, for the school district, it's $41,000, of which they are in agreement to pay their portion of this project. The city's costs are broken down as follows: $76,000 for the fiber optic cable, which includes the materials and labor to put it into the conduit that exists. $10,000 is an estimate for the conduit and communications vaults that need some repair that we've identified by inspections. About $5,000 for an additional short run of fiber optic cable at the Spring Reservoir, and $10,000 required for network equipment to connect the fiber optics to our existing network. And that totals for the city's costs at about $101,000 on an approved budget of $125,000. There may be some additional cost savings, although not huge. We may be able to, as an option, terminate only half of the fibers in the cable and leave the other strands as reserved for future considerations, and that would save an additional $3,200 for the school district and about $2,850 for the city of Parksville. We have confidence that the preferred vendor has the experience and resources to complete this project to our satisfaction. And after checking up with the customer references for Above and Beyond Networks, they came in with very high recommendations for the company. And some of those references were the City of High River, Rogers Communications, the City of New Westminster, and Novus Entertainment from Vancouver. Staff are looking for council's support on the selection of the vendor Above and Beyond Networks for this project in order to improve the city's communications network services and the resulting positive impact that we would have on service delivery for the next 25 to 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for recommendations 1 and 2. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Greer. Discussion? Councillor O'Brien.
If I can, through your worship, to Mr. Moody, thanks very much, Mr. Moody, for this presentation. This is pretty exciting, actually. I think it's a great step forward, and I was impressed to hear that you've got lots of extra fiber optic lines anyways for future growth, and that's good. If you could give me a rough time limit, scope of, if approved, Mr. Moody, what is the actual completion date of this project if going forward?
We would start this project this July in concert with the school district in order to minimize any disruption to their network. The project shouldn't take more than a couple of weeks to complete as far as the fiber into the ground. After that, we just have to connect up our network communications equipment so that our network can start to function through the fiber optic services. So it would be done in July. We're hoping everything would be done. And, you know, a little bit of testing. And so we'll be operational. I'm quite optimistic that August we'd be operational in August.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship, and directed to Mr. Moody. It's nice to see that we had more than a couple people submit through the RFP. Above and Beyond Networks is out of where?
They're out of the Vancouver area. They work in the Lower Mainland. They've done work in Alberta and mostly in BC.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was nice to see that they had a very high rating in the evaluation criteria. And Councillor O'Brien already asked the question other question I was going to have about the completion date. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I will call the question for points 1 and 2, recommendations 1 and 2. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moody.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Russell, are you there?
I am, Your Worship.
Would you please give us your report on the easement and covenant and development variance permit?
If I may. For council consideration this evening is to proceed with notice for two aspects of this application. So one is for an easement to allow for the placement of a commercial freestanding sign within part of the Alberni Highway Road allowance. Associated with this request is the need for a development variance permit. The sign itself, if it was located on private property, would not require a variance, but because it's being proposed to be located in an easement adjacent to the property, variances are required. So this evening, we're just looking for approval to proceed with notice as per the recommendations on the agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a second. First off, do we want to take them all three together or we just, okay. Move for recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion here? Okay, I've got Councillor Frasden and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, through the mayor to Blaine Russell. Just a point of clarification for me. In your report, you mentioned that the highway was realigned in the past to improve the curvature of the road. And I'm just wondering then, if the road was not realigned, would the position of the sign been within its allowance, or would it for the property owners, or was a property line adjusted as well, or which way was the alignment done?
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship. So essentially the road was moved further east and the property is on the west hand side. So years ago, the pavement would have been closer to the property than it currently is. The allowance itself, though, has not changed. It's on the west side where the subject property is. It's just towards the east, the road surface has been shifted, essentially.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, then the boulevard was then increased, so it just provides a lot more room than between the property line and the sidewalk. So there's more boulevard to accommodate something like this sign?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Director Russell, just a couple of questions about that. Right now, there's a sign for Cascadia Liquor on, I believe it's going to be on the opposite side. So will that stay? Is one of the questions.
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Wilson. So the Cascadia Liquor sign we expect will be addressed. This sign is intended to be a multi-tenant sign. The Cascadia sign does not currently have authorization. And so as part of, we've been in contact with the applicant for this multi-tenant sign that prior to us issuing the sign permit for it, the other sign will need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. We can have a follow-up, please. So my other question is, what if the city needs this land in future with all the development, and who knows why, maybe it never will, but would there be an option for the city to break this agreement, let's say, or not?
If I may, Worship, it is my understanding that the city could end the agreement at a future date, should it be necessary.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Worship, and to our Director of Planning. On the one in our package on page 35, it shows a night view. Is this an illuminated light, or is this reflective writing?
If I may, Worship, through to Councillor Patterson, it is backlit. And so it meets the sign bylaw requires that just the letters or graphic be illuminated. So that's why when you see the night view, you can see that just the letters in white and the QF and an image are showing.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Russell. Mrs. Weeks, background on the next issue.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to obtain council authorization of an aerial encroachment. So during development of 175 Weld Street, it was discovered the second floor balconies encroach over city property. So in order to authorize the design of the building with the balconies, the property owner has requested an easement over those parts of Weld Street. Staff have prepared an encroachment easement and covenant agreement, which will run with the land and will require the owner to meet certain insurance, maintenance, and liability conditions, recommendations as per the council agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder. Do we want to take them all together? Councillor Greer, moving, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Further to the report from Mr. Butterworth earlier in the meeting, we need 3 readings. The sanitary and storm sewage systems amendment bylaw 2021, bylaw number 1319.18. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor O'Brien, and it's going to be read 3 times. So all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws final adoption to the alternative municipal tax collection scheme bylaw 2021, number 1571. 3 readings to bylaw provided April 19th, 2021. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Wilson. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Final adoption, the 5-year financial plan bylaw 2021-2025, number 1572 for 3 readings. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Greer. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Mr. Butterworth, could you please explain the changes required to the tax rates bylaw? Mr. Butterworth?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get this unmuted and get.
I lost you.
Nope. Here we go. The tax rate bylaw, the change that happened there is we're doing this process a little bit earlier than we normally do. Normally, this would be the first set of readings at this meeting, and then we would have a special meeting to adopt. So by moving it forward into April, one of our steps that we would due to calculate the regional district wastewater rates was missed. And so the rates for the wastewater on the previous rates was incorrect. So we have to pull it back and amend those rates now that we've done that process to establish the correct rates. And so that's why this is sort of has to go backwards a step and then be adopted with the new rates.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for all three recommendations. Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Final adoption for the sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 2021 number 1493.8. I need a mover for the recommendation. Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Parks and Spaces Open Committee recommendations. Next meeting is on June 3rd. Fair enough. Any discussion, any points? Anybody? Councillor Franz, you? No? What did I forget? Okay. All right. All right. Moving right along. Notice of motion. At the last meeting, I made a notice of motion to on the speed limits for heavy-duty vehicles on side streets. I need a seconder for my recommendation, Councillor Greer. And the motion reads that a staff be directed to review options for reducing the speed limit for heavy-duty vehicles such as dump trucks on side streets from 50 kilometers to 35 kilometers within the city of Parksville, and provide council with options at a future meeting. So we have it. What did I do?
No, if I may, Your Worship, just for staff, if we could get some direction from council throughout the discussion about the priority and timing for this would be very helpful.
This is in the future.
Do you want to just leave it at that?
Okay, no, that's fine. All right, discussion. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And actually, that was going to be my question, is how much, because staff have continually warned us that we need to be cognizant of their workload, how important this is right now to do, or whether this could be done when we discuss other issues around the cities and even in our downtown revite. So that's maybe my question would be to our CAO. How much does this require replacing this request with something else is going off the table?
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Wilson, as we've flagged at the staff level, there are a significant number of new items that have been added over the last 3 months. And most of them don't really provide a lot of direction to staff about the priority. And so at the moment, we're trying to kind of do the very small little ones here and there, but we will be coming back to council in June with the full list. But at this point, we are seeking, each time a councillor brings something forward, we're seeking some direction on priority and where this should come in on the list. Does it go to the top and bump something out, or does it go to the bottom? So that's our request.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this would be directed to you. I'm wondering what has brought this motion forward in the first place and how important it is, and what are the reasons that you are asking for this?
Those are all very fair questions, Councillor Wilson. It resulted in a number of phone calls that I received from residents complaining about the speed of the dump trucks. I've talked to the bylaws officers. They have also gone down there and have received a number of complaints from the residents down in that area, because what's happening is that the dump trucks can't make the turn. It's the Molliet, and they can't make the turn with their big dump trucks and everything, so they're going down side streets. And so this is that was what started it and my thought is if any side streets, we don't have sidewalks, we don't, we don't have any facilities for kids or for people to walk down. It would seem to me to make sense to slow the trucks down because they're doing in excess of 50 now. So hopefully we can do that.
Can I have a follow-up to that?
Sure.
So this might bring up another issue about trucks on our side streets anywhere. Never mind just how fast they're going, whether or not they should even be going down. So I'm just wondering if this might, you're talking about Molliet in particular right now?
I'm talking about any side street in the city of Parksville.
But it's the people on Molliet that complain?
That's what generated.
That's where it started?
That's what generated the
Right,
complaint.
okay, so, but I'm just wondering whether or not that this brings up a much bigger study, transportation study period in the city. Can our CAO maybe address that?
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Wilson, we do have a transportation plan, and that does look at things like the designation of routes, so arterial routes or neighborhood routes and that type of thing. I think this will be a fairly big piece of work for staff to review, so that it is something that doesn't have unintended consequences somewhere else. Because typically what we see is if you limit the traffic in any way on one street, they just move over. And so there can be unintended results if the street next over isn't set up to accommodate that, because people will just naturally try to take the quickest, shortest distance. So yeah, it's certainly those things are done usually in a bigger planning process. And I don't believe that something necessarily could fit into this work plan without a change. But we do periodically do that, and there's a lot of consultation that happens, and they're updated sort of every 3 to 5 years typically when we have the staff to do that. So I think I'd have to double check, but I think the last round of consultation was about 3 years ago on the master transportation plan.
Thank you. Councillor Fraz.
Thank you. A question was just around heavy duty, and if they're just set like a weight limit to the vehicles, or we just describe different types of vehicles in that. And also just in regards to this type of issue, you do see it on areas where there's grocery stores, not just up Molliet, but down on Bagshaw with Eat Fresh and Thrifties. You have the semi trucks that are using the residential roads, Bagshaw, Stanford, Corfield, that type of thing as well. So I know there's been from that neighborhood for quite some years too, some of the residents asking for things to be done for large transport trucks. But my question, I guess, was just around if we'd clarify what exactly is heavy duty, because otherwise it can be pretty subjective.
My answer to that would be that's why I've asked for staff to provide options for reducing the speed limit. Whether it's a 2-axle dump truck or whether it's a tandem dump truck, I don't know enough about it to make that. I think staff have to come up with that recommendation is what my thought process. So I would just like to give it to staff to come back with the recommendation on it. Yeah, please.
Just with that, I do want to say that I do support this motion, and I understand that the staff workload is pretty heavy, and the way I see it, that's how it's always been, and I think that's how it's always going to be. The notion of like putting something on there to bump off later on, I think we go through every so often and reevaluate. Then we get to see all our priorities at once. I don't agree with just turning things down just because we know there's a long list, because maybe there are things on there that are less important. So I think if the residents are asking for certain things, let's bring them forward, have those discussions, and maybe it's not always just wiping them off the list, but just deferring them to another time to when they do become higher up there.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm fully in support of this motion as well. I think it's a good idea to bring more safety and some traffic calming to our streets. As far as the size, it just says here speed limit for heavy duty vehicles. I know in other jurisdictions, on the municipalities, they go on a GVW, and that defines the commercial vehicle or the heavy duty. So that's usually a kind of a standard that they use. My only ask at this time is, could the staff reviews also include the fact of not just on side streets, but also on, say, 19A and Alberni Highway as well? Maybe not reducing it from 50 to 35, but maybe from 50 down to 40. In other jurisdictions as well, the commercial trucks says, the mayor says the dump trucks and so forth, traveling at 50 kilometers an hour down 19A and actually exceeding it, as we all know, is very frightening to pedestrians and people that are thinking about crossing in crosswalks before them. So I think it'd be important that we actually consider that as well as a possibility to slow that down. I know that we had a situation, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, when French Creek Marina was doing a breakwater extension there, and there was a constant parade of rock trucks coming in from Nanaimo Pit with huge rocks, and they were rolling down 19A right through our city because it's the quickest way to get to French Creek Marina. And they were flying, and I know many people and many at that time in our area complained that it was frightening, but I mean, this is the only way that the trucks could get there. But just the ask be that they be maybe directed to go slower on the highway as well as the side streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greer, Councillor Chandler, Councillor Patterson, and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I agree with this totally. I think it's a very important issue. I've also had complaints sent to me over this issue. And I think with all the construction that's going on in the city right now and over the next year or two, I think we should react fairly quickly on this. There might be other things on the list that aren't as important, but I think this is very important. So I would support this, and hopefully we can bring it more to the top of the list of situations where we have to look at. Anyways, I think it's an important issue and it should be looked at. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I echo the same as Councillor Greer. I think there is a higher level of importance with this. I know just in my area alone where I have my business, trucks are constantly flying through that area just by Stanford and where it connects up. They're right by Parksville Chrysler and so on. So they come screaming around that corner. It's dangerous for both bike riders and pretty well just anybody trying to pull out of the side streets and so on. So I think this is a really good initiative and a great motion, because I think the other part of it is just on the city streets. It's also very dangerous and also a little bit unnerving for a lot of the pedestrians. So I'm glad to see this coming forward. I would support it fully and think it should be something in the next little bit that we look at because of the number of construction projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. While I don't disagree with the recommendation at all, I do believe that it needs to be more in depth and requires a full-on traffic study, as we haven't had one in 3 years. I believe that our city staff are overwhelmed, and as our CAO has said, we have added more motions in the last 3 months, not decreased any. And I am concerned that that by adding something else will undoubtedly fall off. So in part of your recommendation to that, I do believe that it needs to have a dollar amount, and whether or not this can be done outside of city staff recommendation, or a time period for an in-depth traffic study. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I also have to agree with Councillor Patterson. I think it's a great idea in some ways that traffic is terrible through the city with the trucks, but I think it's also because of all the construction we have. So, but that also, not just only should we reduce the speed, but I'm wondering whether trucks should even be allowed to go through some of these side streets as they do. I mean, so I agree with Councillor Patterson that this probably requires more of a study just to determine what are the best ways to address this besides just slowing down, because as the CAO said, they'll just go somewhere else. So I think it is a bigger problem. And then, of course, the other question is to our CAO, will you bring back to council items that you are going to have to determine that are going to be dropped from our list, and when that might be?
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Wilson. So staff would not be necessarily recommending which items would come off, but what we are planning to do is bring all of the items that are on the list. So there was about 49, I think, or 47 items approved on January 18th for the work plan, which would be council-directed projects, not our normal day-to-day projects. And there are now about an additional 30 or so. Some of them are not really within our control. An example of that would be the clinic for vaccinations. Of course, everyone supports that, and we didn't know that that was going to be on our work plan. So, you know, a lot of them are very legitimate, but I think what we need is direction from council on, within the limited hours that we have for staff, what do you want us to work on first and what can wait or what could come off? We are unfortunate in some respects that we still have some very critical vacancies, and they're in engineering, and this is an engineering project, as are many of the new ones that come out or have come out. So I think with the motion as it's written, we would have to come back with a sort of a follow-up as to some options of how to even, if it is deemed to be high priority, we would have to try to figure out a way that that could actually be achieved. And I think to Councillor Patterson's point, it's going to have to be contracted out. But I am hearing as well a lot of changing scope than what's just on the motion. So at the end, before the vote is called, perhaps we could get clarification. Is the motion staying exactly as it's written, or is it more broad? Because that would help staff come back with a proposal as to how we actually try to meet the requirements.
Thank you. First, I'm going to address it now. First off, it's no surprise that we've got all this construction going on in this community. It's no surprise that we have a lot of dump trucks on the road right now that we probably didn't see 2 years, 3 years ago. The concern I have is that we have these narrow side streets that in some cases it's necessary for the trucks to go down there. All I'm suggesting is that they slow down so that there's some safety. It's too late when somebody gets hit by a dump truck going 50 or 60. Dump trucks don't stop even near as fast as cars do. So I am concerned about this. You know, we need to perhaps at some point in time have a study, but by the time we're finished a study, we may end up somewhere down the road way after construction's completed and all these dump trucks have done it and some kid gets hit by a car or by a truck rather. I don't know, you know, not trying to fearmonger, but I'm just suggesting that this is something that seems relatively straightforward to just let's make the move, let's get this done. As to the staff situation, I agree. We have added an awful lot of things onto this list. There's no doubt about that. Staff are going to come back to us in the very near future. First, when is it you're bringing your report?
If I may, Your Worship, we're planning on bringing it in an open meeting in June.
So we can, and when it comes in June, we can look at it and say, look, we can move all of these 15 things that we've put on in the last can all move down one, and we can take and put the dump truck thing here. We can look at where the priorities are for staff at that point in time. If you ask me what we move and what we drop, I don't even know what the remainder of the items are that are left on there because we go through so much over a period of a year. So all I'm suggesting is when we get this in June, then we make the decision when does this get done? Does it get put forward to next January, or does it get put on immediate and we go outside? We approved in our budget outside consulting for things such as this to be handled. And maybe this is the first one that has to be done. I don't know. I look at it, I hear what Councillor O'Brien is saying. He's got a very valid point. Should we be slowing all streets down for big trucks? Those are all things that we need. I'm not reducing the importance of doing a traffic study. I think it's time that we do a traffic study. The problem is by the time the traffic study gets done, most of the trucks will be finished at that time anyway. So I think we move this forward. I think we move it. I can put it here, it says future meeting. I'm willing to change the wording around so that it says that we can establish a date, a priority to it after we receive the report from staff on what's left on the agendas to be handled, and then we can go from there. That seems to me to make some sense. I again am also thinking that perhaps we can look at it to include looking at all streets rather than just side streets for speed limits. And maybe we just take the actual number out of it and say, instead of saying from 50 to 35, we just say, look at the speeds of all large trucks on the streets in Parksville. That way it makes it a little bit easier. I mean, it becomes second cousin to a traffic study, but at least at that, we've got something we can go out to a consultant with if we need to be. So I'm prepared to make those changes to this amendment, or to this recommendation rather, to change it from, take out the word side streets and just put streets, and change this, instead of 50 to 35, just put review the speeds. So you can word it whichever way you wish.
So if I may, Your Worship, Councillor Greer seconded, but just to be clear on what we're changing, so that we're going to, staff are going to come back with a sort of a scope report of what would be included and how that could be achieved. But so it would include defining what heavy duty means, looking at all streets and reducing the speeds to some recommended amount.
To some record, that sounds fair.
But did I also hear from you, sorry, just to clarify, that that would be maybe brought back to the June meeting when we review the lists?
Yeah, okay. I'd like to put it on, approve it today, but make
Bring
it
the
so
scope.
that the priority be established after we've seen the June list and been able to figure where it's going to go.
Okay.
All right. Councillor Greer, are you okay with all of those changes? That's
I'm okay
slightly
with all.
larger than a friendly amendment, but
Yeah, I'm okay with the changes, and I agree that we should approve this today, and then we can take a look at the other list in June. But I think we should get on with this. I think it's that important. Thanks.
thank you. Councillor Chandler, I've seen your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I was going to mention that, when we're looking at the trucks, that anything over 5,500 GBW that stop at a weigh scale should be kind of considered. I think that's the best case scenario. Second to that, I think that, looking at this the way we did with the four-way stop on Despard, I think it's one of those things where we put it in place quickly, add that safety factor, and then deal with the other aspects of it after. I think that's a great way to look at this. So thank you again for bringing this forward.
Any other comments? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the amended change? Opposed? Note that Councillor Wilson and Councillor Patterson are in opposition. Thank you very much. New business. Council, our Director of Community Planning and Building wishes to submit an application to the UBCM for a grant to facilitate the implementation of improvements to the permitting processes for development in the city of Parksville. These improvements will include development of an online application portal. The deadline for submission of the grant application is Friday, May the 7th, and requires a resolution of council. May I have an approval from council to introduce the required resolution? First off, because we need unanimous consent to bring it up. So all those in favor? Fair enough. And assuming that I need a mover for the recommendation that council supports the submission of a grant application by the Director of Community Planning and Building to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities under the Local Government Development Approvals Program, and will commit to provide overall grant management to facilitate the implementation of improvements to the permitting processes for development in the city of Parksville, including the development of an online application portal. I'll make that recommendation. I need a seconder. Councillor Patterson. Discussion on this? It's a formality, but we need to do it. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. After today's meeting, if we could get a little bit more information sent to us by email, that I would appreciate that. And this is a grant, part of a grant application as well? And how much?
I'll let the boss tell us.
If I may, Your Worship, I think that Director Russell is here as well, but the grant is up to $500,000. But at the moment, what we're going to be doing is scoping out. We're going to have to hire an independent person to help us with this. But some of the money would be for that contract position, and some of the money would be actually to purchase the software so that we can implement an online portal. The Director of Planning and the Manager of IT are going to work out the budget over the next couple of days and meet the deadline. They're always short turnaround times, but we think that we can do enough of a scope basically to get us the consultant if we get it approved. So we're thinking at the moment probably around 300,000, almost split equally between the consultant and purchasing the software, but we would be able to clarify that by the end of the week. We have to apply by the 6th, which I believe is Friday.
Any other questions? Councillor Chandler.
Just a question through your worship to the CAO Keller. Would that grant also, would it cover any of the staff time at all, like a recovery of funds on the staff time spent on putting this together? That's just a question.
If I may, Your Worship, we can clarify for sure. I don't have the eligibility in front of me, but usually that isn't eligible. But you can cover contractor costs or consultant costs. And then usually purchasing the capital is also part of that. So it would hopefully be fairly minimal staff time. It would just be, interviews and then providing them our current forms and that kind of thing. And then they would basically go away and come back with what we hope would be a relatively easy thing to switch on once we purchase the software. We are also trying to include training for staff in that, because the consultant would do the training for our staff. But I haven't seen any grants in the last little while that I can think of where our staff time was recoverable, but I don't know if Director Russell has it at his fingertips. Perhaps the mayor could ask him.
Your worship, I don't believe that staff internal resources are typically covered. From what I've seen in the package, that doesn't appear to be the case.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Mr. Russell, if we could. I'm just seeking a little bit of clarification here, Blaine, on the application itself. Is this to improve the, it says an online portal for permit applications. Does this seem to be the wave of where things are going, so the contractors can actually apply online instead of bringing all their plans in and so forth? Is this taking us into the next century, so to speak? Or what is the actual software going to provide for us?
If I may, worship through to Councillor O'Brien. So some of it is basically, exactly how people can submit online. Some of it is having electronic application forms that basically feed the data into the system, saving staff manually recopying information into the system. It has the ability to send renewal emails, for example, when an application might lapse or when there's a renewal period. It can be used for more effectively scheduling, for example, building inspection. There's a number of inspections that occur in the application process. A builder could log in to see where their application is at, to get a list online of what deficiencies there are that they need to address so that they can get re-inspected again. Part of it also would include the ability to do on-site mobile data entry, either on their smartphone or tablet, where staff is actually in the field, again, saving doing it twice by writing notes and then having to enter it into the system, as well as to improve how it sort of administers statistics and tracking of where applications are throughout processing. So.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you. There's no other questions. Did we get times for Councillor Chandler? Thank you. Fair enough. Councillor O'Brien, it's not even bringing us into the next century. It's just bringing us into this century, you know, and doing this. So, and Councillor Patterson, more time would have been nice. We received this afternoon, or well, I received it about 11 o'clock this morning. So it's just one of those things that needed to be done. We were unaware that we needed a resolution, and it just got pushed through so that we could get it done. And because it has to be submitted by Friday, it makes it very difficult. So having said all of that, I need to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Special business, just a reminder that our next regular council meeting will be held on the 17th at 3 p.m. I need a mover and a closer pursuant to section 91E of the community charter. Council proposed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to disposal of land. Moved by Councillor, pardon me? You mover and his closer. And Councillor Fraz, since he's got something to say, he just said he seconded it. All those in favor? Okay, moving right along. Let's take 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Let's take 5 minutes as a break, okay? Yep.